So good morning, everyone. For today, we are going to be working with Microsoft Dynamics CRM on bulk actions. Basically, we are going to be talking about how to create, update, or delete records massively. The idea of the webinar is present you in a practical way how to do it, not just a technical one. But again, we are going to be just presenting like the theoretical way at the beginning, and after that, I will be just presenting that directly in the system in the CRM. So our agenda for today, we are going to be doing a small introduction just to let you know what's the process of basically the functionality that we are going to be covering, and then we are going to be reviewing the specific steps, basically the create, the update, or the delete. As an introduction, CRM Dynamics offer a wide variety of possibilities in terms of how can I do those processes. Basically, the CRM offers the ways to import information, and based on that import process, I could affect the information that I already have in the CRM. I'm going to be explaining you how to do it directly with the files, with the import file. And additionally, I'm going to be explaining you how to do it directly in the CRM with an advanced search or something like that. That is an additional way to do it. So I want to explain you both ways to do it. Besides that, I'm going to be mentioning some important things or some facts that you have to keep in mind when you are trying to do this kind of things, because probably you need to have additional permissions, additional roles, or you have to keep in mind some additional considerations to do your process in the best possible way. Okay, let's start with create. When you want to create records massively in CRM, you have to keep in mind basically four important things. The first one is that the massive process is going to be allowed just if you have the security role. I mean, you cannot import, for example, accounts if you doesn't have any permission to create an account. So if you have permissions to create a specific record, you are going to be able to upload information to that entity. At least in terms of the roles, in terms of the permission level, if you have create permission, you could upload files as well. But additionally, it's important to keep in mind that the import functionality is something that has a different role, and it's something that I am just mentioning in this point. The import of files is only possible if the user has been assigned a role that allows him to perform the import. So what it means is that you need to have access to related entities, like for example, data import, data map, import source files, and some other entities that if you don't have access to these entities, you are not going to be enabled, or I mean, you cannot import information if you don't have access to these entities. That's something that your system administration needs to enables you using a security role. Another important thing is that to import information, you could use Excel file or CSV files. Basically, those are the things, those are the kind of files that you could use to import information. And after import those information, you have to keep in mind that if you are using a CSV file, you need to map the file manually. That's something that I'm going to be explaining you in a couple of minutes. Okay. So let's do the exercise of create, and let's mention, and I'm going to be showing you this import role that basically you have to. I mean, if you don't have that role, it's not going to be possible to import information. So let's start reviewing the permission level. If you enter to advanced settings, you will come here, and later you could enter to security. You have to be sure that the user that is trying to do the import have the right permissions. Probably you are using one of the out-of-the-box roles. Some of them has that functionality. Some of them allow you to import information. For example, the customer service agent or some other of them are enables you to import information. And some others like sales manager, for example, probably is going to allow you to do that. Usually in Optimus, we customize a specific role to do it. And based on that information, we could define if it's someone that is going to be allowed to import that information or not. The import security is something that is going to apply for all entities. It means that if you have permissions to import, you could import information in all entities that you have enabled to. I mean, if you have permissions to create cases, or if you have permissions to create tasks, or if you have permissions to create accounts, and additionally you have import permissions, you are going to be able to import information in all of those entities. Okay, so the first thing is that you need to validate that you have permissions on that entity. I mean, you have permissions to import information. Okay, so the first thing is import permissions. The second thing is that you need to go directly to the entity that you want to import. For example, let's say that I want to import a country. So if you want to import a country, you could do it in many different ways. The first way is click here in advanced settings. I mean, I used to do it in that way. Enter to data management and enter here to templates for data import. Here you could select the entity that you want to import, for example, countries. You could click on download and you will be able to download the information here. Give me a second, please. Okay, sorry. So you could download the file here, and after that, you're going to have the template that you have to fill it out to import the information. Let's say that you want to import information. For example, let's say that you put here the name of the country. I guess that this country is not created yet. No. So I'm going to create this one, Chile, for example, and I'm going to put an additional code. Let's say that it's going to be like, for example, this one, and it's going to be an area code, for example, this one. So you could create here multiple records. Okay, let's try to do it. Another one that's going to be like, for example, this one and this one. Sorry about that. Argentina. Okay, so I have the countries here. I already filled out the file, and then I just need to come here to the CRM Dynamics, click on Import from Excel. You need to select the file. You could just click on browse the file, choose the file, select the file that you want to upload, for example, this one, country. Just click on next. You could define if you want to allow or not duplicate, or if you want to use an alternative or not. And then you just need to finish import. Okay. Okay, so if you want, you could click on track progress. That is going to open the data management that is going to show you that two records were already imported. So if you came here to countries and refresh, the information is going to be here. I mean, that's the easiest way to do it. Okay, that's the easiest way to do it. The other way to do it is import using a CSV file. So we are going to be doing that exercise just to explain you how to do the mapping and all of these things. So let's create another file. In this case, I'm going to be creating, let's say that I'm going to create a test file, like countries CSV. Let's create like this. Actually, if you want, you could create directly in an Excel file, that just to make it simple. If you have a CSV file here, like for example, name, and let's say that ID, phone code. I'm going to put different names just to show you the mapping. Okay, so let's say that here I could put the country. Let's say that is going to be this one, and the ID is going to be, let's say that is going to be this one. And the phone code or the area code, let's say that is going to be this one. So I'm going to save the file, but what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be saving that not as an Access file. I'm going to be saving that as a CSV file. Okay, and I'm going to put here the file in countries. Okay, so I already saved the file. Now what I'm going to be doing here is that I'm going to upload the file directly from here. I'm going to, for example, you could click here and import from CSV. And you are going to select the file. And what is going to happen now is that the CRM is going to ask you for the mapping, because you need to review it. You need to define the mapping that you are going to be doing. If you don't do that, the CRM is not going to know what's the sequence of the columns that is going to be handling. So you need to define what is going to be the mapping that you are going to have. Let's click on review the mapping, and let's see how to do it. So for example, in this case, he could map the name because it has the same name, but the code, it doesn't know what's the code. So in my case, it's going to be the ID. The area code is going to be the phone code. Okay, so you could have mapping with different codes. And additionally, you could have here, and after do that, you could define here, uh, what's going to be the, and after that, you could define, if you want, you could save this mapping and you could use it later. For example, if you already saved it, you could have it here and after that just use it. But this is our first time, so I don't have it saved. So I just need to just define, just finish the import and track the progress again. If I want to see the progress here. So the country CSV file is already submitted. You could start refreshing. It's going to be parsing. And after parsing, you could see that it's transforming. And if everything is good, you could see here the process completed as soon as it finished. So it's already completed here. Okay. So if the process has any issue, like for example this one, you could click here and you could see on failures, you could see what is the specific progress that the process has with this specific file. Okay. But in our case, everything passed okay. But if you have any issue, you could just see here what's the issue here. Okay, you could see here, just refresh, and the country that we already import is already here. Okay, so that's basically the way to import files. For do that, you need to have access. For example, in my case, I need to have access to countries to create countries, and I need access to import information. With the permission that I already showed you. Okay. Basically, that's the way to create information. It's pretty simple, but and you have both ways. You could import from an Excel file. You could import from an CSV. Actually, you could import from XML, but I think that is kind of complex, so I don't use to do it. But you could have an XML and just mapping the XML file and import information. That's another way to do it. Okay. That's for creation. The next one is going to be the update. So there are additional things that you have to keep in mind when you are updating information. Basically, when you are updating information, you need to have you need to have permission to update. manually if you want to update massively. So if you don't have any edit permission or update permission to modify the record, you are not going to be able to update the information directly in a massive way. Uh, you could modify records directly in the CRM massively, or you could modify records using an Excel file again. I'm going to be showing you both ways to do it. My suggestion is do it directly with an Excel file. And basically the reason is that I mean the possibility or I mean the risk is lower. I think that that's the main reason. Because if you are modifying directly in the CRM, if you are not if you do like an advanced find or something like that, and something is not correct, probably you could have more issues than if you modify that in an Excel file. I'm going to be showing you both ways to do it, but my suggestion is do it directly in the Excel file. And another thing that you have to keep in mind is to modify that, you need to have a specific additional role. I mean, a specific additional permission. It's not just the edit or the modify permission. In the security role, you have to have a specific role. It doesn't matter which one, but the role that you have assigned should have permission to modify records massively. That permission is here in business management in bulk edit. If you don't have that, the CRM is not going to allow you to modify records massively. So that's something that you have to have enabled. Okay. So how to do it? There are two ways to do it. Let's do it in both ways. The first one is that, for example, if I want to modify using an Excel file, I could, let's delete this. I could export the information. For example, this one, I'm going to export the countries. I could modify the codes. For example, I'm going to modify the area code. Sorry, I have to enable that. And you could come here. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's it. You could modify the information that you require. It could be the code, could be the name, or could be the field that you require. You just need to save it. And after that, you could just import the Excel file, import information. The CRM is going to identify that you are modifying information and is going to do the process by yourself, by itself. Okay. So the CRM is going to modify the information as soon as he processes the file. Sometimes takes a moment, but at the end it's going to modify the information. That's it. So I've already modified the information. So okay, so that's the way to do it using the Excel file. Something that you have to keep in mind is that if you export the file and you modify the file, but during the same time someone is modifying the records, at the moment that you import the file, the records that had additional changes later after you import the file are not going to be modified. I mean, the CRM is going to respect that and it's not going to modify the records that someone else modified. Okay, so that's the first way to do the modification. Just export the Excel file and after that modify the Excel file and re-import the information. How the CRM, how that is possible? As you can notice here, the file starts with the column D. So there are additional columns here that the CRM use to identify the information, to identify which the entity, what's the record that he needs to modify, what was the modification time, or some other things that he needs to validate when he is importing. Please don't modify these columns. Don't delete the columns and don't remove the information that is in those columns. If you do that, the CRM is not going to be enabled to modify the information. So just leave it hidden. So I just wanted to show you that there is additional information there just for that purpose, but don't modify these columns. Okay, so that's the first way to do it. That's the first way to modify information, and I think that it's a good one to do it. Another one is that probably you could just select information. You could just select some items here, like for example, multiple ones, and you could modify clicking here on edit. When you click on edit, the modification that you just do it in this form is going to be applied to all records. For example, if I put 99 here, and if I click on save, the modification is going to be applied for all of these records. Okay, that's another way to do it, just selecting the records directly here. But if you want to select the records directly in the view, I don't recommend you do it directly in the view. I prefer to do an advanced find on search um, to identify the specific records that I want to modify. And after that, for example, here, let's say that I want to add an additional, like for example, area code, and I'm going to put 99. I mean, apply the specific validations that you wanted, and here select the records. It's exactly the same, but when you do the filter, you are just like guarantee that the records that you're going to be modifying are the records that you want to modify. So just select the records, and after that you just click edit, and it's going to be the same. It's going to be the same process. Just change it, but again, it's going to be more like specific because you are applying a specific query, and after that you are doing the modification. Okay, so that's the way to modify the information. There is no way to modify the information using a CSV file. You could modify the information using the Excel file because the Excel file has the hidden columns with the specific information that he needs to validate that. But if you want to modify using a CSV, it's not going to be possible because the CRM always is going to try to create the records. It's not going to try to update the records. It's just going to um, it's going to create a records. It's not going to update the records. Okay. So for creation, you could use Excel file, CSV file, XML file. For modification, you could use Excel file or just the interface, just the CRM directly to modify the information. Okay. Okay. The next one is going to be the delete process. The delete process has the same condition. If you want to delete something, you need that permission. You need to have delete permission to delete something. It doesn't matter if you want to delete directly in the form or directly in the view, or if you want to delete directly using a massive process. You need to have that permission. If you don't have that permission, you are not going to be enabled to do that. Okay. You could use the standard functionality, or you could use the bold record deletion. I'm going to be explaining both options, and it's up to you which one is better. It depends on the situation. For example, if you want to delete the record, you could just come here directly. Let's say that this one, you could click on delete. And if you had permissions, you are going to be enabled to do that, delete the information. I don't recommend delete the information. I prefer disable the information or deactivate the information, but don't delete the information. I have to explain you how to delete the information because there are some cases that you need to delete it because storage or because you just wanted to delete it. But my suggestion is try to deactivate the records. Don't delete the information because you are going to lose probably some information that you cannot recover later. If you delete something, it's going to be deleted and that's it. You cannot recover that. Okay? So if you want to delete, you have to select the record that you want to delete. That's one way to do it. Another way could be just identify the records here in advanced search, select the information, and after that just delete the records that you wanted. That's the second way to do it. You cannot delete records using an Excel file or a CSV file. You cannot do that. That's not possible. The other way to delete information is just click here in advanced settings, and in advanced settings enter here to data management. If you enter to data management, you are going to have an additional option here that is for record deletion. Let's do one. And let's delete, for example, Argentina, Ecuador. Let me change this. I don't want to delete this one. But let me change that, and let's delete Argentina, and let's delete Ecuador. So if you want to delete that, you need to come here to bold record deletion. After that, you just need to click on new, and you need to define here what is the specific condition that you want to apply. It's basically the same that you do when you delete the records directly in advanced find, in advanced search. But here you have an additional functionality that is basically schedule the delete process, or actually configure it as recurrence process. So for example, let's do that. Like for example, delete countries, and let's define that is going to be with the area code is notified. Okay. Actually, you could preview the records if you wanted. Just click on next. Define here the name. Let's say that schedule bool delete, and let's put something that let me identify what is this later. Countries 95, something like that. You could define here if you want to execute this automatically, I mean directly, immediately, or you could define, okay, let's execute this every day or whatever you need. For example, every day at 11 a.m. and I'm going to be executing every day. So you could select here weekly, monthly. I mean, you could define here the period of time. But if you want to execute this, for example, every day, and the option is not here, you could just write it here, and it's going to work. I mean, you could define here the days that you want. The CRM is going to suggest you some days, but you could define here the days that you require. And additionally, you could define here who is going to be the person that is going to be notified as soon as the process is finished. Or if the process has some issue, the CRM is going to let you know. Or just if the process just finished, you could notify here someone. Let's say that is going to notify me. So I could put here my name. It's going to let me select the user. And after that, I'm going to click on next. When I click on next, the CRM is going to show me the information that I'm going to be applying. And as soon as I click on submit, the process is going to be scheduled. If you don't want to execute the process more than once, if you just want to execute the process just one time, you could just remove this and leave it like this. And the CRM is going to execute the process at this time. And after that, it's going to be a success process and it's not going to be running again. That's a really good way to do it. That's a really good way to remain your information properly storage. I'm going to suggest you review this link because I think that is pretty cool. It's going to show you what are the things that you should be scheduling or that you should be deleting constantly to remain the storage of your CRM in the best possible way. I'm going to be sharing you this in the chat, and I really want to suggest you to review that because this information is pretty useful and it's going to remain your CRM in a healthy way. Okay, basically that's the way to delete the records in CRM. Using an advanced search, deleting directly here, using the bulk record deletion. Basically, those are the functionalities. I mean, I'm explaining you the functionalities that you could use it directly in the CRM, directly, I mean, in the system without any code. Of course, you could use some pieces of code or some elements to delete records, but those are the things that, or those are the process that mainly you are going to be using without any other functionalities, just the standard ones. Okay, so besides that, just let you know that you always are going to have this instance. That's a trial instance, but it's an extended trial that we have available. You could enter here, you could use this user and this password, and you could try it by yourself. The idea is allow you to do it by yourself. Probably most of you are going to have a CRM instance, but probably you don't want to try it there. So if you want to try in a regular environment, or if you want to try in a trial environment, you could use this one. It's available anytime, and you have any specific test that you want to try, that's a good way to try it. Just enter here and try it by yourself. Okay, for today, that's it. If you have any issue or if you have any question or some comments that you want to review or some specific question, or if you want to validate something additionally, please let me know. You could send me um, you could send me an email directly and I'm going to be explaining you or I'm going to be answering you as soon as I can. Thanks a lot for your time and I hope you see you in the next webinar. Thanks.